The recruitment center was a slaughterhouse, and everyone knew it. Massive holographic displays lined the sterile white walls, cycling through propaganda images of heroic Archean soldiers, towering, genetically perfect beings with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed with an unnatural azure intensity. Below each image, casualty statistics scrolled in microscopic text, a silent testament to the human cost of the Imperium's endless campaigns. Commander Area Chen stood at the back of the processing chamber, her cybernetic eye scanning the room with a precision that belied her disgrace. The prosthetic was a patchwork marvel, a reminder of her last mission, and the reason she'd been marked for memory erasure. Most of her original eye had been destroyed during the Proxima Uprising, replaced with a quantum-linked system that saw far more than any standard military augmentation. The fresh conscripts looked like children, teenagers from the outer colony worlds, their faces a mix of terror and forced bravado. Chen knew their stories without hearing a word. Desperate families selling their youngest members to the Archean recruitment system. One child's sacrifice would secure food credits, medical treatment, or a marginally better living assignment for an entire clan. A massive holographic projection of High Archean Kree-Vax materialized at the center of the room. Its voice was a perfect blend of bureaucratic monotone and telepathic suggestion, designed to suppress individual thought while maintaining the illusion of choice. Citizens of the Imperium, the hologram intoned, "Your service is the highest honor. Those selected will join the most advanced military force in galactic history. Those who serve well may earn citizenship, may see their families elevated." Chen's cybernetic eye flickered. Beneath the holographic projection, she saw the raw data streams, recruitment quotas, survival rates, the cold calculus of human expendability. The Archeans needed bodies. Lots of bodies. The recruitment officer, a baseline human augmented with neural suppressors, began processing the line of conscripts. Each teenager stepped forward, was scanned, chipped, and branded with their service designation. Their eyes went slightly glassy as the neural pacification protocols activated. But Chen saw something else. A pattern. A weakness. The recruitment database was massive, but it was also a closed system. The Archeans believed in absolute control, which meant absolute tracking. Every conscript was a tracked asset, every movement calculated, every potential deviation predictably managed. Absolute control was always an illusion. Her fingers, mostly synthetic, rebuilt after her last court-martial, twitched almost imperceptibly. Microcircuitry integrated into her skin began to interface with the room's communication systems. To anyone watching, she was just another disgraced officer, waiting to be processed or erased. The recruitment officer never saw her coming. In less than 17 seconds, Chen uploaded a virus that would rewrite the entire conscription database. It wasn't destruction, it was transformation. Ghost soldiers, digital phantoms that would exist only in the Archean's most secure systems. Alarms began to sound. Red emergency lighting cascaded through the recruitment center. But by then, Chen was already moving, blending into the panicked crowd of new conscripts. Her last act of defiance had cost her everything. Her command, her reputation, her future. The Archean military tribunal had been clear. Memory erasure, complete psychological reconditioning, removal from any position of authority. They thought they had broken her. They were wrong. The teenage conscripts around her looked confused, some already feeling the neural pacification protocols beginning to take hold. Chen knew she had minutes, perhaps less, before security would lock down the entire facility. One of the teenagers, a girl no more than 16, with defiance burning in her eyes, looked directly at Chen. For a moment, something passed between them. Recognition. Potential. Rebellion. Chen's cybernetic eye captured the moment, storing the girl's biometric data, her entire history compressed into a microscopic data packet. Another piece of the plan taking shape. As security protocols engaged and blast doors began to seal, Commander Area Chen allowed herself the briefest hint of a smile. The game had just begun. The safe house was anything but safe. Located in the metabolic underbelly of New Jakarta's orbital ring, the facility looked like a standard maintenance node, a maze of exposed conduits, recycled air systems, and electromagnetic shielding that could scramble even the most advanced Archean tracking algorithms. Chen's first recruit arrived exactly 72 hours after the recruitment center breach. Marcus Reyes looked like 1,000 other low-level technicians, lean, unremarkable, with the perpetual stoop of someone who'd spent decades maintaining the Imperium's massive infrastructure. But Chen's cybernetic eyes saw far more. Micro-expressions, subdermal muscle tensions, the barely perceptible rhythms of someone who'd survived by being invisible. "They're hunting me," Reyes said, not as a question of fear, but as a statement of fact. Chen didn't respond immediately. Instead, she was running diagnostics, analyzing the quantum encryption traces that clung to Reyes like a second skin. Every movement, every breath was a potential transmission vector. The safe house's walls were a living system of adaptive camouflage and signal disruption. Developed during her special operations days, the technology could remake its internal structure faster than most scanning systems could detect. Right now, it looked like a standard maintenance node. In moments, it could become something entirely different. "Your service record is interesting," Chen finally said, pulling up a holographic display that flickered between multiple potential identities. 17 years maintaining wormhole stabilization arrays. 3 commendations. No disciplinary actions. Reyes didn't flinch. "I'm good at being invisible." The hologram shifted, revealing layers of data that most would never see. Micro-anomalies in his service history. Moments where the standard bureaucratic narrative didn't quite align. Chen was hunting for something specific, not just a recruit, but a weapon. "The Archons believe in perfect systems," Chen said, her cybernetic eye projecting a 3-dimensional map of the galactic communication networks. "But perfect systems always have imperfections, quantum uncertainties, human variables." What she was proposing wasn't just resistance. It was a complete reimagining of warfare. The Phantom Legion would be built on impossibility. Digital ghosts that existed in the margins of the Archon's computational awareness. Soldiers who were simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Reyes understood immediately. "You want to create units that can't be tracked. Soldiers who exist only in the system's blind spots." Chen's smile was razor-thin. Not just units, an entire army. The recruitment would be surgical. Chen had spent years mapping the human diaspora, the forgotten, the marginalized, the ones the Archean Imperium considered expendable. Veterans with nothing left to lose. Refugees from destroyed colonies. Criminals with specialized skills that made them too dangerous to control, but too valuable to simply eliminate. Each potential recruit would be a precision instrument. Not just a soldier, but a living weapon of systemic disruption. Reyes watched as Chen's fingers danced across a quantum interface, creating digital personas that would slip through the Archon's most secure tracking systems. Birth records, service histories, complete psychological profiles constructed from fragments of data, woven together with an artistry that bordered on quantum magic. "How many?" Reyes asked. Chen's cybernetic eye calculated possibilities faster than any human brain could comprehend. "Initially, 12 units. Each unit will be a complete fiction, but a fiction so perfectly constructed that it becomes indistinguishable from reality. The first test would be crucial. A standard Archean patrol would intercept what appeared to be a routine troop transport, but nothing would be as it seemed. Outside the safe house, New Jakarta's orbital ring continued its endless rotation. Millions of humans moved through their prescribed paths, monitored by systems they didn't understand, controlled by an empire that saw them as nothing more than resources. They didn't know a war was coming. A war that would be fought in the spaces between detection, in the quantum uncertainties that the Archean Imperium believed didn't exist. "Are you ready?" Chen asked. Reyes didn't hesitate. "I was born ready." The Phantom Legion was about to be born. The Archons understood warfare like a mathematician understands equations. Perfect, predictable, reducible to computational probabilities. Their battle algorithms could track 1,000 variables simultaneously, predict enemy movements with 99.997% accuracy, calculate casualty rates, strategic outcomes, and resource allocations faster than biological intelligence could comprehend. They were wrong. The first strike came at the Helios 9 supply depot, a massive orbital infrastructure hub that processed nearly 40% of the Imperium's munitions and logistical supplies for the Orient sector. To the Archon command structure, it was an impregnable fortress. Quantum-encrypted perimeter defenses, multi-layered energy shields, automated defense platforms that could track and neutralize incoming threats before they even entered weapon range. What happened defied every computational model in the Archon's strategic archives. The depot didn't explode. It didn't get attacked. It simply disappeared. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Completely erased from existential tracking systems. One moment, Helios 9 was a critical strategic node. The next moment, it was a blank space in the galactic cartography. Navigation systems couldn't find it. Communication networks produced null responses. Even the quantum entanglement matrices that maintained the Archon's instantaneous communication network produced nothing but white noise. 312,000 support personnel. Millions of tons of military equipment. An entire strategic hub, gone without a trace. Commander Area Chen watched the initial reports through her quantum-linked cybernetic eye, her expression revealing nothing. Every movement was calculated, every response measured. Marcus Reyes stood beside her, analyzing the cascading system failures. "They'll try to reconstruct the data," he said, "but every attempt will introduce more corruption." That was the brilliance of the attack. It wasn't about destruction. It was about introducing doubt. The Archons had built their entire civilization on the premise of absolute control. Perfect information, predictable outcomes. Their genetic engineering, their telepathic networks, their computational systems, all designed to eliminate uncertainty. Chen's Phantom Legion would make uncertainty their primary weapon. Each of the 12 Phantom units was a precision instrument of systemic disruption. Not soldiers in the traditional sense, but living viruses in the Archon's computational ecosystem. Take Unit Sigma 7, for example. On paper, they were a standard planetary pacification team. 36 soldiers with impeccable service records. Deployment histories, psychological profiles so detailed they could predict individual behavioral responses under extreme stress. None of them actually existed. Every piece of their identity was a carefully constructed fiction, woven from fragments of real human data, but ultimately a digital phantasm. Birth records, medical histories, family connections, each detail so meticulously crafted that it would survive the most intense computational scrutiny. The Helios 9 operation was just the beginning. A strategic wormhole junction suddenly developed incompatible navigation protocols. Entire battle fleets found themselves unable to generate stable transition matrices. Communication channels became white noise. Supply lines fractured in ways that defied logical explanation. The Archon's response was predictable and devastating. They began systematic purges, eliminating entire planetary populations suspected of harboring resistance elements. Entire worlds went dark, sterilized from orbit, their populations reduced to statistical anomalies. But each attack only accelerated the breakdown. Chen understood something fundamental that the Archons did not. Complex systems are most vulnerable, not through direct assault, but through the introduction of microscopic uncertainties. A communication protocol with a 0.003% error rate seems insignificant. But when that error rate is introduced across millions of simultaneous transmissions, it becomes a cascading failure. In their quantum communication networks, in their telepathic control systems, in their genetic hierarchies, Chen was introducing a virus of uncertainty. They'll never see it coming, Rice said, watching another system anomaly propagate across galactic communication bands. Chen's cybernetic eye calculated potential outcomes. Probability matrices shifted like quantum foam, impossible to predict, yet following their own intricate logic. No, she responded. They'll see everything and understand nothing. The Phantom Legion's true war had just begun. The quantum gambit was madness. Pure, calculated madness. Deep within the metabolic networks of an abandoned research station orbiting a dead neutron star, Chen unpacked technology that would make most quantum physicists weep. Stolen Archean encryption modules, each one a marvel of engineering so complex that human minds could barely comprehend their underlying architecture. We're not trying to break their system, Chen explained to Marcus Rice, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to bend reality itself. We're trying to make it impossible to trust. The stolen quantum encryption technology was more than just a communication tool. It was a fundamental reimagining of information transfer. The Archons had developed these modules to create what they believed was an unbreakable communication network, a system where every transmission was simultaneously encrypted and verified at the quantum level. Chen was going to turn that perfection into a weapon. Most military strategists would have attempted to crack the encryption, decrypt the impossible. But Chen understood something far more profound. In a system built on absolute trust, the most devastating attack was to introduce deliberate imperfection. Each quantum module was a universe unto itself, quantum states that existed in multiple potential configurations simultaneously, information that was both present and absent, transmission protocols that could be simultaneously verified and compromised. Rice watched in a mixture of terror and fascination as Chen began to modify the modules. "You're going to get us killed," he muttered. "No," Chen responded, her cybernetic eye calculating probabilities faster than any biological brain could comprehend. "I'm going to make us impossible to kill." The modification was elegant in its simplicity. She wasn't destroying the encryption. She was introducing quantum uncertainty at the most fundamental level. Imagine a communication network where every transmission had a microscopic chance of being simultaneously true and false, where verification became a matter of probabilistic uncertainty rather than absolute confirmation. The first test would be crucial. They selected a mid-level Archean military communication hub, a massive orbital installation that processed trillions of quantum-encrypted transmissions every microsecond. The kind of facility so critical to the Imperium's infrastructure that any direct attack would be suicide. Chen's approach was anything but direct. The modified quantum modules looked identical to standard Archean encryption technology, microscopic variations so subtle that even the most advanced scanning systems would miss them. Each module was a precision instrument of systemic doubt. As the modules were introduced into the communication network, nothing seemed to change. At first. But deep within the quantum communication matrices, something extraordinary began to happen. Transmission verification became a game of probability. Military orders would arrive, but with a microscopic chance of being simultaneously confirmed and denied. Strategic coordinates would exist in multiple potential configurations. Troop deployment instructions would carry an infinitesimal quantum uncertainty that would grow exponentially with each transmission. Imagine a military command structure where you could never be certain if an order was genuine, where every transmission might be a trap, where the fundamental nature of information transfer became a landscape of shifting probabilities. The Archons had built a system of absolute control. Chen was turning that system into a weapon of mass confusion. "How long?" Rice asked, watching the quantum matrices propagate through the communication networks. Chen's cybernetic eye tracked the spreading uncertainty. "Hours, maybe days, but the infection is irreversible." The first signs of systemic breakdown would be subtle. A military unit receiving conflicting deployment orders, a strategic coordinate that existed in multiple potential locations, communication channels that would become increasingly unreliable. The Archean Imperium was about to discover something fundamental about complex systems, Perfection is always an illusion. They'll try to purge the network, Rai said. A statement, not a question. Chen's smile was razor-thin, and every attempt will only spread the uncertainty faster. Outside the research station, the dead neutron star continued its eternal rotation. Massive, silent, a perfect metaphor for the dying Archean Imperium. The quantum gambit had begun. Betrayal was an art form, and Marcus Rice was a master. The moment stretched into infinity. Chen's cybernetic eye captured every microscopic detail. The subtle shift in Rai's breathing, the almost imperceptible dilation of his pupils, the quantum-level electromagnetic signature that betrayed his true nature. "I've been waiting for this moment," Rai said, his voice switching between 3 distinct communication frequencies. An old Archean sleeper agent trick, broadcasting on multiple channels simultaneously to prevent precise tracking. The secure facility around them went into absolute lockdown. Quantum adaptive camouflage systems reconfigured, creating multiple potential spatial configurations. To any external observer, the location would exist in a state of quantum uncertainty, simultaneously present and absent. Chen didn't move, didn't react. Her entire body was a computational matrix, analyzing probabilities faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. "Which handler activated you?" she asked, not as a question of fear, but as a precise diagnostic query. Rai smiled, a perfect engineered expression that had been crafted in Archean psychological conditioning labs. "You think this is about a handler. This is about something much larger." The truth was a weapon more complex than any quantum encryption module. Rise wasn't just a sleeper agent. He was a living experiment, a hybrid construct that existed in the margins between human potential and Archean genetic engineering. His file had been a carefully constructed fiction. 17 years maintaining wormhole stabilization arrays, 3 commendations, no disciplinary actions, the perfect invisible operative. But Chen had known. From the moment he walked into her safe house, she had known exactly what he was. The Archons never understood human complexity. Chen said, her cybernetic eye projecting a multidimensional analysis of Rai's biological and quantum signatures. They thought they could create the perfect infiltration agent, but complexity is not a bug. It's a feature. Rai's activation was itself a trap. The Archons believed he was feeding critical information back to his handlers. Instead, he was spreading a mimetic virus that would slowly unravel their psychological conditioning. Every transmission, every reported detail. Each piece of intelligence was a precision-crafted payload designed to introduce fundamental uncertainties into the Archon's closed system. "You're thinking 3 moves ahead," Rai said. It wasn't a compliment. It was an acknowledgement. The facility around them was a living system. Adaptive camouflage shifted. Quantum entanglement matrices reconfigured. What appeared to be a simple research station was actually a complex computational ecosystem that could remake itself faster than most scanning systems could detect. "The human mind is the most dangerous quantum system," Chen responded. "Unpredictable, non-linear, capable of holding multiple contradictory states simultaneously." Rai's true purpose was never simple betrayal. He was a living probe, designed to test the boundaries of the Archean's control systems. Every moment of his existence was a potential vector of systemic disruption. The Archons had a fundamental weakness. They understood control. They understood prediction. But they could never truly comprehend human irrationality. Rais began to laugh, a sound that was simultaneously genuine and manufactured. A quantum state of emotional expression that defied traditional computational models. "They're coming," he said, not as a warning, as a statement of mathematical certainty. Chen's response was immediate. The facility began to deconstruct itself, not destruction. Transformation. Quantum modules shifted. Communication pathways reconfigured. An entire operational infrastructure dissolving and reforming faster than any tracking system could comprehend. "Let them come," Chen said. Her cybernetic eye calculated potential outcomes. Probability matrices shifted like quantum foam, impossible to predict, yet following their own intricate logic. The betrayal was never about rays revealing information. It was about creating a moment of absolute uncertainty, a quantum singularity of potential outcomes. Outside the facility, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The next phase of the rebellion was about to begin. Consciousness was warfare. The Archons had spent 3 millennia perfecting the ultimate control system: genetic engineering, telepathic networks, absolute hierarchical structures that eliminated individual thought before it could even fully form. Their civilization was a perfect machine, each component precisely designed, each function meticulously controlled. They never understood their fundamental weakness. Deep within the computational core of the Archon Imperium's primary psychological conditioning center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the impossible. Captured during Chen's initial operations, she was anything but a prisoner. She was a weapon. Rodriguez's background was a marvel of human potential: neuropsychologist, quantum consciousness theorist, specialist in emergent cognitive systems, the kind of mind the Archons considered simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. Consciousness is not a linear system, she explained to the Archon research team monitoring her, her voice a precisely modulated instrument of intellectual warfare. It's a quantum ecosystem, dynamic, adaptive, capable of existing in multiple states simultaneously. The research center was a marvel of biological and technological integration. Massive neural networks stretched across quantum computation matrices. Telepathic interface nodes pulsed with billions of simultaneous information transfers. To the Archons, this was the pinnacle of cognitive control. To Rodriguez, it was a system waiting to be disrupted. Her capture had been deliberate, a precision-crafted infiltration that looked like a capture, but was actually a sophisticated invasion vector. Every moment she spent in the facility was an opportunity to introduce systemic uncertainties. The psychological triggers were microscopic, almost imperceptible. Quantum-level linguistic patterns that would slowly unravel the Archons' most fundamental belief systems. Imagine a communication network where doubt became a virus, where certainty itself could be systematically compromised. The Archons' telepathic networks operated on a principle of absolute consensus. Billions of minds connected in a perfect hierarchical system. No individual thought could exist outside the collective consensus. No deviation could survive. Rodriguez was about to prove them wrong. Her research had discovered something profound about consciousness. It wasn't a fixed state. It was a dynamic process, a continuous negotiation between potential states of being. The human mind wasn't a computer to be programmed. It was a quantum ecosystem that could reshape itself continuously. The first signs of breakdown were subtle. Archon administrative units began to hesitate. Military coordination systems developed microscopic delays. Strategic decision-making matrices started to produce increasingly unpredictable outcomes. Not destruction. Something far more dangerous. Doubt. Each psychological trigger was a precision instrument. Language patterns that introduced fundamental uncertainties, communication protocols that carried hidden quantum-level interference, cognitive interfaces that would slowly destabilize the Archons' most fundamental belief systems. The research team monitoring Rodriguez noticed nothing unusual. Her brainwave patterns appeared standard. Her responses followed expected protocols. But beneath the surface, a revolution was brewing. "Tell me," one of the lead researchers asked, "about the nature of collective consciousness." Rodriguez's response was a masterpiece of intellectual subversion. She spoke about consciousness not as a fixed state, but as a continuous negotiation, about the human capacity to hold multiple contradictory perspectives simultaneously, about the fundamental uncertainty that exists at the quantum level of cognitive experience. Each word was a precision-crafted payload. The Archons had built their entire civilization on the premise of absolute control. Perfect information, predictable outcomes, their genetic engineering, their telepathic networks, their computational systems, all designed to eliminate uncertainty. Rodriguez was introducing uncertainty at the most fundamental level. Imagine a collective consciousness where individual units began to question, where absolute consensus became a negotiation, where the very foundation of shared experience started to fragment. The research facility continued its endless computational cycles. Massive neural networks pulsed. Quantum matrices hummed with seemingly perfect efficiency. But something was changing. Microscopic, fundamental, irreversible. The Archons were about to discover that the most dangerous weapon was not a gun. It was an idea that could not be controlled. Consciousness was warfare, and humanity was just getting started. Consciousness was warfare. The Archons had spent 3 millennia perfecting the ultimate control system: genetic engineering, telepathic networks, absolute hierarchical structures that eliminated individual thought before it could even fully form. Their civilization was a perfect machine, each component precisely designed, each function meticulously controlled. They never understood their fundamental weakness. Deep within the computational core of the Archon Imperium's primary psychological conditioning center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the impossible. Captured during Chen's initial operations, she was anything but a prisoner. She was a weapon. Rodriguez's background was a marvel of human potential. Neuropsychologist, quantum consciousness theorist, specialist in emergent cognitive systems, the kind of mind the Archons considered simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. Consciousness is not a linear system, she explained to the Archon research team monitoring her, her voice a precisely modulated instrument of intellectual warfare. It's a quantum ecosystem, dynamic, adaptive, capable of existing in multiple states simultaneously. The research center was a marvel of biological and technological integration. Massive neural networks stretched across quantum computation matrices. Telepathic interface nodes pulsed with billions of simultaneous information transfers. To the Archons, this was the pinnacle of cognitive control. To Rodriguez, it was a system waiting to be disrupted. Her capture had been deliberate. A precision-crafted infiltration that looked like a capture but was actually a sophisticated invasion vector. Every moment she spent in the facility was an opportunity to introduce systemic uncertainties. The psychological triggers were microscopic, almost imperceptible, quantum-level linguistic patterns that would slowly unravel the Archon's most fundamental belief systems. Imagine a communication network where doubt became a virus, where certainty itself could be systematically compromised. The Archon's telepathic networks operated on a principle of absolute consensus. Billions of minds connected in a perfect hierarchical system. No individual thought could exist outside the collective consensus. No deviation could survive. Rodriguez was about to prove them wrong. Her research had discovered something profound about consciousness. It wasn't a fixed state. It was a dynamic process, a continuous negotiation between potential states of being. The human mind wasn't a computer to be programmed. It was a quantum ecosystem that could reshape itself continuously. The first signs of breakdown were subtle. Archon administrative units began to hesitate. Military coordination systems developed microscopic delays. Strategic decision-making matrices started to produce increasingly unpredictable outcomes. Not destruction. Something far more dangerous. Doubt. Each psychological trigger was a precision instrument. Language patterns that introduced fundamental uncertainties. Communication protocols that carried hidden quantum-level interference. Cognitive interfaces that would slowly destabilize the Archon's most fundamental belief systems. The research team monitoring Rodriguez noticed nothing unusual. Her brainwave patterns appeared standard. Her responses followed expected protocols. But beneath the surface, a revolution was brewing. "Tell me," one of the lead researchers asked, "about the nature of collective consciousness." Rodriguez's response was a masterpiece of intellectual subversion. She spoke about consciousness not as a fixed state, but as a continuous negotiation. About the human capacity to hold multiple contradictory perspectives simultaneously. About the fundamental uncertainty that exists at the quantum level of cognitive experience. Each word was a precision-crafted payload. The Archons had built their entire civilization on the premise of absolute control. Perfect information, predictable outcomes. Their genetic engineering, their telepathic networks, their computational systems, all designed to eliminate uncertainty. Rodriguez was introducing uncertainty at the most fundamental level. Imagine a collective consciousness where individual units began to question, where absolute consensus became a negotiation, where the very foundation of shared experience started to fragment. The research facility continued its endless computational cycles. Massive neural networks pulsed. Quantum matrices hummed with seemingly perfect efficiency. But something was changing. Microscopic, fundamental, irreversible. The Archons were about to discover that the most dangerous weapon was not a gun. It was an idea that could not be controlled. Consciousness was warfare, and humanity was just getting started. Aftermath was never simple. The galactic core burned with the remnants of a civilization that had believed itself eternal. Archon space stations, once symbols of absolute control, drifted like broken dreams. Quantum communication networks that had once connected billions now produced nothing but beautiful, terrible noise. Commander Area Chen stood on the observation deck of the Ghost Nexus, a mobile command center that existed simultaneously in multiple quantum states. Her cybernetic eye tracked the transformation of a universe that was relearning how to exist. They had not just defeated the Archon Imperium. They had fundamentally reimagined the nature of collective existence. Marcus Rice approached, carrying a data crystal that contained the entire compressed history of their rebellion. "They're asking what happens next," he said. The "they" was intentionally ambiguous. Could mean the liberated populations, the confused Archon remnants, the emerging human colonies. Chen's smile was something between a mathematical calculation and a promise of infinite potential. "Humanity was never meant to be controlled," she responded. "We were meant to explore, to adapt, to become." The rebellion had been more than a military campaign. It was a philosophical revolution. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined them, her research having become the foundational text of a new understanding of consciousness. Her work had proven something fundamental. Intelligence is not about control. It's about negotiation, about the ability to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. The liberated worlds were chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. Planetary systems that had existed under Archon control for millennia were rediscovering self-determination. Some collapsed. Some flourished. Some transformed into configurations no one could have predicted. That was the point. Chen's Phantom Legion had been more than a military force. They were vectors of possibility, agents of uncertainty that had introduced the most dangerous concept possible into a system of absolute control, individual potential. Reyes understood something profound. "We didn't destroy them," he said. "We gave them a choice." The Archon genetic lines, once a perfect, controlled system, began to produce unexpected variations. Some Archons discovered individual thought for the first time. Others retreated into isolated systems, unable to comprehend their new reality. Entire star systems became laboratories of potential. Chen's cybernetic eye tracked the emerging patterns. Probability matrices that once would have been impossible now danced with infinite potential. Quantum communication networks that had been tools of control now became channels of exploration. "What do we do with the technology?" Rodriguez asked. It was the question everyone was asking. Chen's response was characteristic. "We explore. We adapt. We become." The Ghost Nexus itself was a testament to their approach. A command center that could exist in multiple quantum states, unable to be tracked, unable to be controlled. A living symbol of the rebellion's core philosophy. They had not just defeated a civilization. They had introduced a new way of understanding existence. The Archon Imperium had believed that control was possible, that a perfect system could be created, that individual thought could be eliminated. Humanity had proven them wrong. Not through superior firepower, not through traditional warfare, but by introducing the most dangerous concept possible: the ability to choose, to adapt, to become something unexpected. Reyes looked out at the transformed galactic landscape, broken Archean structures, emerging human colonies, planetary systems in flux. Was it worth it? He asked. Ken's response was a quantum calculation of infinite possibilities. We are just beginning. The Ghost Nexus moved through space, not a weapon, but a promise. A living testament to human potential, to the ability to transform, to find strength in uncertainty. Outside, stars burned, galaxies spiraled, and humanity looked to the universe with eyes that had never been more open. No longer controlled, no longer confined, becoming. In the vast, beautiful chaos of possibility, they had found something more powerful than any empire. They had found themselves.